What's up guys, I'm BTC. The other day I myth-busted the idea that some character skins can give you an advantage. But you guys brought up some really good points that there are certain character skins that don't give you an advantage, instead they do the exact opposite. They put you at a disadvantage when you use them. So that's what we're gonna run through today. When I made my video the other day, the main thing that I was trying to show was whether or not certain character skins could actually give you an advantage and make it harder for the enemy to see you and then to hit you. But because the video ended up being a little bit on the long side, I had to cut out a couple of things. Hopefully we can get all of that cleared up today though. Now if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe because I got tons more awesome Overwatch content every single day. So subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss any of it. So the first one here is another blending advantage you didn't mention is that Junkrat's bear trap changes color depending on your skin, and a black bear trap is much more likely to go unnoticed indoors or in dark environments. This is definitely true, but only in some cases. So right now you can very clearly see these are friendly traps, so they kind of stick up above the ground. You can tell that they're different colors. But from the enemy's point of view, you can see only the little teeth that are kind of sticking up from the ground, so you don't actually see the color of the trap. Where this makes a difference, though, is if you place the trap on an incline or some other surface where the trap will stick out a little bit. At that point, you can then very clearly see the color, and if one of them is brightly colored, then it's going to be a lot more easy for the enemy to see it, and if something is kind of darker or it blends in, then it's going to be more difficult. So yes, this is absolutely a valid tactic. Use the darker colored traps, and it's going to be more difficult for the enemy to see them. Next two questions are about voice lines. So, you forgot about automatic voice lines. Reaper, for example, yells, "Death comes," when he teleports, but with the Nevermore skin, the enemy doesn't hear the words when he teleports, only the specific sound of it, which is not that loud. This is not true, at least not anymore. Maybe when they first put this in the game, but right now, not true.
Positioning.
As you just saw, the default one just made kind of the bird noises, and the Nevermore, he actually said something. It seems to be completely random what Reaper is going to say after he teleports. If you're lucky, he doesn't say anything, but again, it's totally random. So that leads into the next question, which is what about the vocal lines, Hanzo's ultimates having different voice lines and that sort of stuff. This actually was a big deal when it first came up because Hanzo's wolf ultimates were a lot quieter than the dragon version ultimates. And this actually gave Hanzo a pretty big advantage because normally the enemy team would get a really big warning when an ult was going to be coming. So Blizzard went ahead and changed the volume of the wolf ones, and ever since then they've been very careful to make sure that all of the different ultimate voice lines have the same volume level, and they all have about the same length and all that sort of stuff, so that no voice lines have advantages over the others. Next one is kinda true. We could argue that having a short name gives you an advantage, i.e. in a corner, if you have a longer name you'll see it. Well, yes and no. As I showed in my previous video, whether or not your name shows up is dependent on if any of your character model is visible. If none of your character model is visible, it doesn't matter if you have a 300-letter name, it's not going to show up. Only if part of your character model is actually visible will your name show up. If you wanted to push this to the max, you could change your account name to like 3 or 4 lowercase i's to make it really difficult to see, but I don't think that's really necessary or worth it. The next one had a whole bunch of questions and comments about it. The general idea is that there are certain character skins that use weapons or other equipment or just other things that appear on the screen that will actually block your own view. Or in the case of Reinhardt, his weapon choice can actually make it more or less difficult for the teammates behind him to see past. Most of these changes are pretty minimal. They don't really change much, or the thing that they change is at the very bottom of the screen and it's not really obstructing anything anyways, so it's not really that big of a deal. However, there are some character skins that definitely cover more of the screen than they should. One of the better examples of this is with Bastion. So this is his default skin, and then this is the Overgrown skin. There's definitely a lot more stuff on the screen. So here's an overlay of the default on top of the Overgrown. And you can see, yeah, there's definitely some areas on the left and the right side of the screen that are covered up where a player could be standing right there and you wouldn't see it depending on what character skin you're using. There's also the little flower in the kind of the middle, but I don't think that really blocks anything relevant. But yes, if you use the Overgrown skin, you are definitely blocking parts of your screen. Another example is Hanzo, and while this doesn't really block much of the screen, I think for some players it would be more distracting to have what is essentially a second useless crosshair on the screen. For Torbjorn, the pirate skins block less of your view when you're reloading, although I don't really think this is that big of a deal. Zenyatta kinda has a similar issue, although it's when he's attacking instead of reloading. Certain character skins have really big bracelets on his arms, and it just takes up a lot more of the screen. Is it actually going to block you from being able to attack someone or see something that you need to see? Probably not, but it just takes up more screen room, and maybe it's a little more distracting for certain players. Most of that stuff has been pretty minor, but now we're going to look at Reinhardt, and for him, some of that stuff can have some pretty big changes. From Reinhardt's point of view, the hammer actually blocks less of the screen than the axe does. But for the other players who are going to be behind Reinhardt when he's holding up his shield, that's a little bit of a different story. The hammer has more stuff at the top of the weapon, and the axe has more on the bottom. This means that when you have a teammate trying to look out past it, it's going to be a lot easier for him to see past the Reinhardt who's using the axe than a Reinhardt who's using the hammer. And then you have this thing. While the skin and the weapon looks really cool, your teammates might not be so happy with the view. The last thing we're going to talk about is the glowy factor. So in the previous video, I talked about how you can try to blend into the background and be a little bit more hidden. Even with the red outline, sometimes you can crouch on the side or in a corner, and the enemy players will run right by you and just not even notice. I know I've done this plenty of times when I play Reaper. But there are definitely some character skins that do the exact opposite. All of these little glowy, shiny bits and lights make it very difficult for you to actually hide. But one of these is worse above all the rest, and that's Roadhog. His Year of the Rooster skin. The normal hook just has this glowy part on it, and when you use the gold weapon, it like multiplies the glowy effect. So yes, he's basically holding a torch or a flashlight. It just makes it impossible to miss. So I hope that clears up most everything for you guys. Also, don't forget to check out my Discord server. Follow me on Twitch and Twitter. The links for that stuff is down below. Thanks for watching. Remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault. Also, special thanks to all my Patreon supporters for helping to make this all possible. If you'd like to see what kind of cool rewards you can get for supporting the channel, check the links on screen and down below.